Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're having Chuck Mathewson. Chuck is a mortgage broker, and he has his own firm dealing with that. So with that, Chuck, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, so usually one of the first questions that I ask our guests is to tell me and the audience, like, what are you doing today and who are you today in terms of, like, whether it's what you do, what roles you have, and so on.
Right now, I'm a mortgage broker owner. I own my own mortgage brokerage out of Shelby, North Carolina. We cover all of North Carolina, South Carolina. Probably be licensed in Florida in the next week or two, and then we'll expand out, more nationally later. But right now, we work with all residential, everything other than pretty much raw land, purchase refis, HELOCs. I've been in the mortgage business since 2007. I came to work for the famous Countrywide right out of college. Didn't know what I was doing, didn't even know what a mortgage was. And here I am 16 years later owning my own company. So it's been a very impactful job, being able to help people with their homes, and just being able to help people, get into deals and make sure people get in the right situations, not just transaction, but just make sure you take care of them, for the whole transaction. So I love what I do, and, we brought in the family. My wife works with me. Eventually my kids will. That's the long-term goal, to leave a legacy for them. But right now I'm just a mortgage broker. I own my own company that we started 7 months ago. So
Nice. That's really good. Well, before getting into like how you started the company, if we could go way back to where you were born and what was your childhood like?
Okay. So I grew up in Elon, North Carolina, which most people know the university, but it's actually the town of Elon. It used to be Elon College, and then they got big enough to be called a university. But Elon, I grew up on when I was 2, we moved out to a 12-acre farm. We had cows at one point. We had the garden. We worked in the garden, outside every day, boy running around, in woods. And, we had cows for a little bit, and then we got rid of them before Hurricane Hugo came through. But, just a typical, country lifestyle. I played baseball and basketball my whole life, all the way up until the time I was 18. But it was always outdoors, always working on cars, always doing stuff outdoors because, in our time frame, we didn't have, TV where you didn't have to watch commercials. Like my girls were yesterday, Dad, I have to watch a commercial. I'm like, y'all were just so lucky. I used to have to wake up at 6 o'clock to watch G.I. Joe for an hour, and then I got told to get out of the house, and because there wasn't anything else on TV for kids to watch. Or at my grandma's house, my grandma was like, hey, the soaps are on, get out of the house. After 9, 10 o'clock, there wasn't kids TV on anymore. It was Price is Right, and then the soaps, and then whatever else. But you have 3 channels, so that day and age, which I think is obviously gone, but, outside constantly. Every year I got poison ivy. Every year I got some poison oak. Surprised I never got snake bit, but spent a lot of time playing in the woods when I wasn't playing baseball, basketball, riding four-wheelers and stuff like that. So very good childhood growing up. When I was 15, 16, my parents moved into a subdivision. At that point, I had my driver's license, so I was out and about, running the streets, staying out of trouble, trying to at least, and just being a teenage boy with a driver's license at that point. But it really helped my little brother because he actually had friends in the neighborhood and stuff like that, which I never had because people had to bring the kids over. But we rode four-wheelers and stuff like that at my old house. So growing up, and then after I graduated, I went to undergrad at Western Carolina University. I enjoyed that a lot. So I stayed up there for quite some time. I took some time off. Finally graduated. But as an example of things happen for a reason, if I wouldn't have taken the time I did up at Western, enjoyed my time up there so much, I would have never met my wife. So very blessed for that. It just proves everything happens for a reason out there. So.
Yeah. So back in high school, was it a small high school? And what was your life like? Did you have a lot of friends? Was it just like a couple friends?
It was a pretty big high school for the most part. I think we had 300 people in my graduating class.
Okay.
It was sort of out in the country, but we weren't classified as every county has that country redneck farmer, high school that, the FFA is the Future Farmers of America is like the big thing. Well, it was big with us, but, we had a lot of farming families, but it was a normal size. I mean, I was always the guy that got along with a lot of people. I had friends in almost every little group. I had my core friends, which, I still keep in touch with 2 of them, sometimes a few more, but on a monthly basis, still talk to just a couple of them. But overall, man, I felt like I was pretty much friends with, had friends everywhere at some point in time because that's just who I was. I was in band when I was in high school. I played in the drum line, played the saxophone and stuff like that, which I think taught a lot of life lessons. But overall, yeah, I mean, it was, I wouldn't say a huge school, but it wasn't a tiny little school too. I mean, we had a good amount of people, good at sports teams and stuff like that. So,
how were you in terms of your academics in high school?
I was questioned how I passed. To be honest, I did not take school serious at all growing up, even college. That's why it took me some time to get through. But when I did go to grad school, I mean, I took it serious and made a 4.0. But I mean, I was good enough to get into a couple colleges. I was definitely not in honors or anything like that. I just didn't take it serious. I was immature, very immature. But just, I always knew to do the right thing and to stay out of trouble. But just when I never took my academics serious until probably the last couple of years of college, and I was like, okay, I got to get my life together, and I got to finish up school so I can move on with my life. I can't stay in college forever and be a Van Wilder or something, So
yeah. So in high school, before going to college, how did you decide to go to college versus just going to the labor force?
I thought it was one of those things when in my time of growing up, unfortunately people look down on the trades. And I was like, well, I got to get out of this town, because if I go to community college, then, it's going to limit my potential. So I was sort of forced, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. It was beating my head, by my environment. My parents, everybody's like, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. You got to get away from home, you got to go to college. I was way too immature when I went to college. I didn't realize you could fail out of college until about halfway through my freshman year and my first semester. And people were like, yeah, you can fail out. I was like, I'm paying to be here. Like, how can I fail out if I'm paying to be here? Luckily, I did not fail out, for the record. But in the day, it was it was like one of those things like, don't go to community college, because if you go to community college, you'll never get out of this town. You'll never be able to make anything of yourself. And that was sort of beating my head. Looking back, I think it could have been taught to me better. But, once again, everything happens for a reason. That my life at that time, that's the kind of message I needed to get on with my life and move to the next stage. So,
okay. And so your environment, people around you, your family, friends, teachers, whoever, were kind of guiding you towards college, basically.
Oh, yeah.
At that point.
Definitely.
What was your college experience like?
Do we have to keep it like PG-13? Well, college was an eye-opener for me.
Okay.
I feel like I was probably too immature to go to college when I did, but I did understand the importance of it when I went. So Western Carolina, back when I went to Western in 99, and I mean, still to this day, I mean, it's still a little bit of a suitcase college. Back then it was heavily a suitcase college. I had a lot of friends, and then when it got cold, I came home a lot due to some relationships I had at home with some girlfriends at the time, or girlfriend at the time, that we were on and off. So I came home a lot my freshman year. My sophomore year, I pledged Pi Kappa Alpha, which was probably one of the best things I ever did. I knew going into college I wanted to get into the Greek community. My dad was a teak. My grandpa was a teak. My great-grandpa was a teak. And my heart landed at with the Pikes. I'm still involved with them heavily until today. I'm the president of the Greater Charlotte Alumni Association for Pi Kappa Alpha. Still heavily involved in there as much as I can be at my age with my family situation and work environment. But it was good. I'll say I built some lifelong friends in college. The networking and the people I met have led me to where I am today. Having good professors and good advisors really changed my life in college. But overall in college, I mean, I would say I enjoyed it too much. I did enjoy the party scene very heavily. I mean, hence why I took a lot of time off. I didn't know what I wanted to do. At one point, I thought I was going to be in psychology. At one point, I thought I was going to get in construction. At one point, I thought I was going to maybe even get into nursing. And then at one point, I was like, okay, I just don't know what I want to do. Like, I can take business classes all day, but then come to find out, I'd taken so many classes I didn't even need because of bad advising that I'd gotten earlier in my first couple of years in college. When I finally leveled out and spoke with my professors, I was an entrepreneurship major. That's why I majored in at Western, was entrepreneurship. He was one of the professors because I was like, okay, this intrigues me. So I sat down with him, and he's like, well, this is what you want to do if you want to graduate. He's like, you're going to have to go year-round. These are the classes. Boom, 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 boom. This is what you've got to do. And he was the first person to actually ever lay down a plan for me on what I had to do to graduate and get out of school so I could go on with my life. Him and another professor was Dr. Lockwood and Dr. Carton. Great guys. Both lived the life. They worked. They had experience. And then they came into the academia world. So they were some of the best professors I ever had because they had life experience. And they could really tell us, like, hey, this is what you really need to do. We can talk about theories all day, but this is reality. So much that Dr. Lockwood, even one of his projects in one of his classes, he actually gave you, I think it was $100 or $200, develop a product, write a business plan, sell your product, and then at the end of the year, bring me the money back, and whatever money gets donated into a charity. A lot of people came back with no money, but he didn't degrade them or gave them lower grades as long as they could explain where they failed at and stuff like that. It's probably one of the most learning classes I had. I mean, we had people, some guys made some beef jerky, sold it around campus. We made bracelets saying app sucked, which is, our rival at the time, even though we don't play Appalachian, and we always lost app, except for twice when I was there. But it was one of those things where, we sold those on campus. We broke even, but it was a learning experience because when you're sitting there, okay, like, you don't know. He doesn't tell you, like, hey, you got to give me my money back. So in the whole semester, we're like, we got to sell these things and, make sure we don't fail the class. We didn't know he wasn't going to fail us if he didn't bring his money back. He was just, that's how he was. But it was a great learning experience. So it gives you that zero mindset, like zero option mindset that a lot of people talk about now. Being an entrepreneur, it's like you didn't know if you were going to fail that class. You don't want to fail because now you're going to be pushed back another semester to take it again. And some of those classes weren't offered but one time a year and stuff like that. So really a great class, a great program. They even founded a master's program on entrepreneurship up there. That's online that I felt like was really good. There were some older people. I was in the 20s, so older people then probably was late 30s, 40s, that had started businesses that were in there at Western going through that program to learn more stuff about how to run their businesses better through that program. So it was a great program that they built out, and that really set my trajectory. And that's sort of how I got in the mortgage business. A lot of the stuff that on day one at the Countrywide that was corporate training from Countrywide, and they were a Fortune 100 company at that time, was the same stuff I learned in class, in my entrepreneurship classes, going into sales. So,
okay. So back in college, when you got into the Greek clubs, for those that are not familiar with them or maybe have heard about the letters but they don't really know what it means, so can you give a little bit of an overview of what are the Greek clubs and what do each letter stand for? I mean, it's a Greek alphabet, but besides that, like what's some information on that?
Well, the Greek fraternities and sororities all came about after the Civil War. And some dates might be off here. I don't remember exact dates. Because there's so many segregated Southerners that went up north because most of the colleges have been burned down in the South during the Civil War. They went up north, and there was still a lot of racism, not just to, colored people or people with different demographic colors, but to people of the South. And they created these fraternities. And the same thing with sororities. They created these sororities so they could be together, not only for brotherhood and protection and club per se, but for protection. Like there was, and a lot of people won't tell you that, but when you start learning the history of the Greek stuff, and then it grew into the college thing. So when you're at colleges, you had your groups. A lot of them were secret societies to start off with. Not all of them, but some were. And I can't speak on behalf of all the fraternities because I don't know all their histories. We were founded in 1868 and March 1st, 1868, and University of Tennessee. So really not in the South. I mean, not really in the North, but close enough. And still, it's just one of those things where the Greek life has now prospered, and a lot of people, have a bad stereotype for Greek life. Is there a lot of partying and social events? Yes, but there are in college. I mean, it's just simple as that. Unless you don't do anything at all, in college there's events. Mm-hmm. I think the media, I think I guess you would say Hollywood per se, has really blown out what Greek life is about. But the Greek institutions and the people, you go through a pledge. You pledge for a semester. You have to be invited to pledge. You go through a week, what they call Rush Week, and you go visit the different fraternities, find out who do you like, who you not like. They go through the recruitment. It's almost, it's kind of like a business. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have a recruitment, you have president, vice president, sergeant at arms. Everybody's up there that you would have in a typical corporation, and it's ran that way. It's ran like a business. You pay your dues. You have to do so much volunteer work. You have to do so much philanthropy. Philanthropy. I think I said that wrong, but you know what I mean on that work. But it's a great network of it. I mean, my first job when I got into Countrywide was from a Kappa Alpha gentleman that I had been friends with because we were both in the Greek community, and he had gone and got in the mortgage business, and he went to work Countrywide, and he was coming back to Western to recruit, and he was like, "Hey, this is what you can make, in the mortgage business," and I've always knew I wanted to get into real estate. And I was like, okay, well, this is a great opportunity. And that opened a door for me. Along with many other doors that have been opened in my career, being Greek and having a Greek background. It's not about the partying. It's not buying your friends. There's a lot of people that will make those comments, but it's really about a brotherhood. And I've gone multiple places and bumped into Pikes and different places that went to Mississippi State, Alabama. I was actually talking to one last night that went to University of California, Irvine. Some that went up to a small school up in Virginia close to Arlington. I can't remember the name of it. Mm-hmm. But the Greek life alone, I mean, all the different letters mean different stuff to that organization. A lot of stuff is secretive still. I mean, obviously with Google now, you can find a lot of stuff because it's just gotten put out there. But it is a brotherhood. I mean, I know for a fact that I've gone places, and even when I went to Auburn for grad school, there was 2 Pikes in my class, and we only had 12 people in there from different schools, and it's just an instant connection because you went through the same stuff, you have the same beliefs, and with us, like with Pi Kappa Alpha, you get taught how to be a gentleman, and one of the most basic things. Most people don't know that the proper manners, if somebody asks for pepper or salt, you're supposed to pass both. That's actually the proper way to do so. I mean, that's just some of the stuff that you learn in there because you do still fall back on those beginning rules and guidelines and how to be a gentleman, how to make sure that you take care of people, which is a lot of stuff you hear in coaching now. I mean, a lot of it does have religious backgrounds too, but not to get into any of the secret stuff, but that's the gist of it. I think Greeks communities are great. Greek alumni give more money to universities than any other alumni. Mm-hmm. They're also the ones that come back more and participate more than other alumni when you look at the stats and stuff like that. So just to one more question on that. No, that's fine.
You mentioned your dad was part of Teak and you're part of Pike, or you were part
Yes.
What is the difference between the two? Like, is there a big difference or between any of them?
Well, there's a lot of difference between them, but it's really the people in the organization at each school. Each school's chapters are going to be a little different. Mm-hmm. Same thing goes for sororities. The Teaks at State, the Teaks that used to be at Elon, were a different group of guys than the Teaks that were at Western. I was friends with the Teaks at Western, don't get me wrong. And once they found out I was a legacy, because once you're a legacy, you're pretty much guaranteed to get in, they recruited me very heavily. But I didn't like the group as a whole. And where people I met and people I mingled with all fell into Pi Kappa Alpha. And I had friends in every organization because we all got along. We all, took care of stuff. But same thing goes, like, some people don't like, the Pikes at Western, but they like the Pikes at UNC Charlotte.
So is it about the people that are part of each organization, or is it about like each organization having a certain set of values that's different from the other organization?
Well, if you differentiate the organizations, everybody does have similar but not the same. Mm-hmm. But you really don't get into the values of the organization or learning about the organization like really in depth until you start going through the pledge process. And that's when you start learning about the history, the rituals, the other brothers, because you got to think some of these bigger schools like, was to say like Carolina or University of Georgia. I mean, some of their fraternities and sororities, they have 200-300 people in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy big. We didn't ever were that big because we're small. But the reason I chose not to go teak was more of the I had more friends, and I liked the way the Pikes were set up at Western. I liked the people that were there. There was a couple brothers that immediately took me underneath their wings before I even told them I was thinking about pledging. Just super nice, invited us out to go do stuff with them, and just super solid people. I still talk to them to this day. I mean, and I pledged in 2000, fall 2000, so 23 years later. I still talk to some of those brothers that I met before I even pledged. I mean, we're still in connection today. Mm-hmm. So,
okay. So going through college, you graduated with a master's degree or what?
At Western, I graduated with an undergraduate degree in entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And then in 2015, something I knew I always wanted to do, I went to Auburn University and got my master's in real estate development. It was an executive program, so the majority of it was done online, but we did case field studies mm-hmm. where we would go to San Francisco, Philadelphia, Tennessee, Seattle.
Like physically you went there?
Yes, physically. We flew there. We went to Australia, and then Auckland, New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And then we would go down there once a semester to actually do a class. So beginning of our semester, we were down there for a full week. Mm-hmm. And it was 8 to 5 in the classroom. And then we went on, and everything else was online for the rest of the semester. So, okay. And I graduated in 2017 from that.
Okay. And so after graduating, you mentioned you went into Countrywide. So what was your role like, your first role, your first job after college?
Well, after I left Western in 2007, I went to Countrywide. As everybody knows, the subprime crisis was hitting. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, it was really interesting because the first 30 days, they made me sit in front of a computer, and I wasn't used to sitting down at a desk that long. So there's like every hour I had to get up because mm-hmm. I just couldn't sit there. I literally did training on a computer for almost a month straight, every week, 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And then they flew you out to Rolling Meadows, Illinois, and right outside of Chicago. It's the first time I ever was on a plane. Mm-hmm. And that was interesting, but that's a conversation for not on this. But the point of the story is when we get there, and it's just like, everybody's talking like, hey, guys have been there in the mortgage business for a long time. There's a couple guys from North Carolina that had came up out of the other Charlotte office I didn't know about. And we were all talking. So I'm getting told all this information. At the time, I don't know anything about mortgages. Like, I know what PMI is. I know how to structure a loan. I know how to, discuss rate. Mm-hmm. I passed the loan officer test, so I was licensed. But until you went up there for the hands-on sales training, you could not get on the phones. They wouldn't. You had to pass the sales training because you had to have memorized a 10-page script mm-hmm. that would pretty much walk you through a loan application. Nobody ever did it, and it was probably one of the dumbest things I ever had to memorize because the computer system actually had it all there. So as you're taking a loan application, you could just read it. I mean, it was really cool the way it had built out, but it was interesting because when we left there, was probably 20 people in that class, maybe 30. There was probably 5 people that went back to branches that were closed. Mm-hmm. And we all had, this is back when text messaging was starting up still. So we're on the text string, and there was a couple guys like, hey, did y'all come back? I came back to my branch stores are closed, and nobody told me.
Wow.
They're like, I don't know how I'm getting reimbursed for any of my trip. I don't know anything. Like, nobody's told me anything. I can't get a hold of anybody. And that's when we start realizing, like, what the heck are we doing? Like, why am I in the mortgage business? What am I doing here? I remember one of the guys I worked with that came from California, which is obviously a bigger market, to Charlotte. He moved his whole family across the country for Countrywide. We were getting breakfast one morning, and our CEO at the time, I can't remember his name, Angelo something, was on TV, and he looked at me, and it was my boy Tyler. He's like, Chuck, he's like, this isn't going to be good, man. I'm like, I don't know enough yet, man, so I'm just going to stick it out. Countrywide laid me off 90 days in. They did a massive layoff. Anybody was hired within 90 days, gone. No questions asked. Obviously, there's a lot of HR stuff with that. In the first 90 days, they don't have to say anything. Totally gone. Was definitely blindsided by that. Sort of slapped me in the face. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just out of college. Like, only work history I got is managing restaurants and bars. So I went, just pounded out pretty much resumes and calling people to find jobs. Nobody in the mortgage industry would talk to me because I'd only been doing it for 3 months. And I had no track record, so nobody would even give me an opportunity to come in their office and talk. So I went to go work for Fuel Pizza in Charlotte, managing one of their restaurants. And I finally just got fed up with that. I was like, this is not what I want to do. And I just had a sort of a coming to Jesus meeting. I was like, look, I mean, I'd rather live in a cardboard box underneath the bridge than do this anymore. So I told my regional manager, here's my 2-week notice. I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. I think it's one of those things where, God's definitely involved. Because the next day, the recruiter for Countrywide called me and said, hey, we want to bring you back. So I came back. 6 months later, the week after Bank of America officially took us over, gone. They laid us all off again.
Wow.
After that, I enjoyed a month off of work, and then I went for work for another mortgage company. This is about 2008, 2009 era, out of South Park. And
So
we were doing...
Sorry,
No, go ahead.
interrupt you right there. So just before moving on to that next job, what was it like feeling like you went to college, you graduated, you did everything you needed to do, and now it's like really hard to find a job?
It was depressing.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down, it was depressing. I mean, because I'm sitting there like, I got to pay rent. Like, I have a dog. I got to feed myself. And it's just like, man, why did I go to college for this? And then, like, the whole time, my parents were like, well, just move home. We can get you a job up here. We can find stuff. I was like, nope, I'm not moving home. Like, I got to do this. This is part of my thing. But it was really hard mentally, by all means, to do that, because my roommate, the guy I was living with, was the guy that recruited me to work for Countrywide, and he was still there because he was a team leader. And he was even mad about the whole situation because nobody told him. But that's corporate America for you, which I get. I've been on both sides of that, those conversations, but it was hard. It was a very hard, and I had to do a self-realization real quick. And then after working with Fuel, I realized, like, I'm not doing that lifestyle anymore of working in the restaurant business. Because it's just not worth it. There was no life. I was working 12-hour shifts, and I literally come home, go to sleep, wake up, and go back into work the next day, and then enjoy 1 day off, 2 days off. Like, this is not the life I want to do. The pay did not equivalent my time on there, so it was definitely very hard mentally during that time. I mean, I thought many times, like, what am I going to do? And then, luckily, through people at Countrywide, I did get another job in another mortgage company, and it was still hard, but, it was one of those times where it's just like, what are you going to do? I mean, we're in the middle of the worst economic time period prior to my lifetime that we'll ever see. You just got to put one foot in front of the other and just keep going forward every day. And that's when I sort of started getting real heavy into self-help with, like, Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and stuff like that. So...
Okay. So, like, usually in college, people think, like, okay, I'm going to graduate. As soon as I graduate, I'm going to get a job and so on, right? Is that kind of the mindset you had? And then you kind of got the reality of, like, even though you have a degree, you have this, but that doesn't mean you get a job guaranteed.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people, and still to this day, I mean, it's sort of beating your head during the, and I would say it's probably a negative thing about academic America, is that they think, oh, when you go to college, you're going to get a job. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people that, still struggle to get a job. I was lucky. I was probably, out of my graduating class, because I graduated that summer, there was probably like 30 or 40 of us in business school that graduated out of the summer. I think maybe 10 of us had jobs, going into jobs the next week. And that was rare because, I mean, it was 2007. Nobody was hiring. Everybody didn't know what was happening. You had half the country thinking that, the world's coming to the end. Other half the country is things like, oh, this is never going to happen. Things are too good. This is never going to end. And it was a weird time. But no, I think a lot of people, and hiring people coming out of college, there are a lot of industries, a lot of companies that their business practice is to hire people out of college and feed that mentality, that ego to make them feel important. And then once they get in there, they find out like, okay, this is not what I went to college for. And they actually hire everybody that applies. They made me just feel special. And then, you're there for 6 months and you're like, okay, well, I'm going somewhere else. This is not what I want to do. We're beating the phones, making 300 phone calls a day and stuff like that. But yes, I have an old boss that would only hire people after their first job out of college. He wouldn't hire college graduates. He's like, they need to have at least one job to sort of get smacked with reality and his words, and then I'll hire them. That way they realize like, okay, just because you got a college degree doesn't mean you're walking out with a $80,000 a year job and the world's going to bow down before you. Like, this is the world. You got to work. So
having that expectation of whether you go directly to the job or you go to college and then you look for jobs, you still have to like pay your dues in terms of starting at the bottom, not really making much until you gain the experience. Like, it seems like experience has a greater value than just college.
I agree. I think college, there's both sides of the fence on should you go to college or not. I think college is a great networking opportunity, but I definitely think it gives you the core foundation of knowledge, and it shows that you can learn and that you're willing to learn to get into it. And I tell people now, like, look, if you want to go get in the trades, still go to college. Go get your degree, so you understand business, because by the time you know the business is good enough and you want to go start your own thing, if you don't know business or accounting or the core stuff, you're going to be a few steps behind, and you're going to have to learn by failing a few more times. I talked to a gentleman the other day, never went to college, but he started his own company, and he didn't even know what a CPA was. And that's not bashing him. He never needed to know. He came out of high school, got into maintenance, got his certifications. I think he's even got his GC license now. But he started his own company so he can make more money, provide for his family. And I was like, well, you need to talk to a CPA. He's like, what's a CPA? I was like, oh my God, that's a CPA. Get a tax plan in place, because if not, you're going to get in a bad situation. So the point of the matter is, like, I think it's really good for people to go to college, even people that do want to get into the trades, because nowadays, you can make a lot of money in the trades. Electricians, they're high demand. Plumbers, HVAC, they're high demand, because my generation was told that was not what you wanted to do. And I hate that, because looking back, I could have made a lot more money earlier in my life, and I was probably too mature to save any of it. But the point of the matter is, there's a lot of kids coming out now that, okay, learn these skills, because that's not replaceable. It's not replaceable by AI. It's not replaceable, go and replace a toilet or a sink or rewiring a house. A robot's not going to be able to do that. It's not. At least not in our lifetime.
Right.
Maybe in our grandkids' lifetime, but not in our lifetime. Those jobs will be there, and they will be paid, because they're still frowned upon by, certain, white collar businesses,
Yeah. So you were in Countrywide, and then after that, you mentioned you went into a different job. What was that?
For a short period, I went to work for Fuel Pizza, managing one of their restaurants. And then when I left Fuel Pizza, I got back into the mortgage. I went back to Countrywide. And then when they did that layoff after the Bank of America merger was official, I went to work for another company. And during that time, we did what they call short refis. So everybody's house in the country was underwater at this period. Yeah. And the company worked out a contract with, I believe it was Home X Servicing, that an investor on Wall Street somehow came and bought all his paper for pennies on the dollar. So they bought all the servicing rights for all his mortgages for pennies on the dollar. And they were sending mailers saying, hey, we'll waive $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. There's a couple that we got that were like, we'll waive $1 million, $2 million off of your mortgage if you refinance. And that's all we did. The phone just rang all day. Because if you think about it, you get something in the mail saying, hey, we're going to waive $100,000 off your mortgage if if you refinance with us, you're going to do it. And it's probably some of the smartest people in the world. The problem is that you'd get appraised. It would take 30 days to get the loan underwritten, and then you get an appraisal back, and then the appraisal would come back. Oh, well, that $100,000, I need $175,000 now. All right, so now you go back and it was a negotiation for 2 or 3 months. And they're like, all right, we got to get an updated appraisal. Okay, well, appraisal came back lower again. And it was just an ongoing cycle. And then people were like, well, why am I going to pay my mortgage if you're just going to waive $100,000 to $200,000 off a mortgage? Like, because now you're delinquent and you're going to lose your house. Mm-hmm. You know, so a lot of people were just like, it didn't make sense, which, you know, it could have been expectations to be explained more. But, I mean, that kind of stuff was happening back in, you know, 08, 09, even in 2010. I mean, a lot of companies stopped doing it, but I mean, that's how bad the house and market was. I mean,
what was the incentive for the lenders to waive off 100, 200,000?
They had paid pennies on the dollar for the debt, for the notes, the mortgage notes on the secondary market.
So the original holders of that mortgage were basically bailed off, and then their assets or liabilities or whatever you want to count that mortgage at that point was sold off really cheap. Okay, so that makes sense.
So if they could still waive, you know, 100, 200,000, 300,000, whatever, and still make money, because now that mortgage is being sold. So instead of they paid a penny for the layman's terms is they paid a penny on the dollar, and they probably made 50 cents per dollar.
So how was it? Was it all government bailout that contributed to that asset being sold so cheaply, or like what was it?
I don't know the details behind the investor that actually had bought all of it, but if I had to guess, it was probably some hedge funds. Mm-hmm. We weren't really we didn't have that information. We just had, you know, we're told what they did, and that's why we were working the contract the way we worked it, and that's why we had to negotiate the way we had to negotiate, because I had to go into an investor and their team and all that stuff. So I'm assuming during that time it was probably some bailout. I don't know for certain. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of people that saw, you know, there was a lot of people that, you know, you don't hear about in the media and stuff that did see that crisis coming, and they liquidated really fast so they could capitalize on stuff like this. And a lot of people got very wealthy by strategic with their money. Some people, luckily, you know, they got rid of some commercials, they got rid of some properties or whatever it was beforehand, and then the market crashed, and then they were able to buy, like, you know, 10 more properties where they sold one. So there were some people that, you know, got very lucky, but then some people strategically liquidated earlier so that they could take those opportunities. I mean, at one point, I think Ford stock was all the way down to like $1 or $2 at one point.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, that's what happened, to my understanding.
So if we look at that time and look at now, it's not the same kind of indicators and so on, but there's some similarities between what happened then and what's going on right now, especially with mortgages now, the interest rate going up. The difference, I guess, is that if we're talking about residential, there's not enough housing, at least in popular areas of U.S. But do you see any or foresee any kind of similar housing crash coming by, or something similar to that?
Not through the way it happened then. Excuse me. The way it happened then was that Wall Street and greed took over. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, the mortgages that have been written since, we'll just say 2010 for easy number, to now for the last 13 years are some of the most well-documented and cleanest loans out there. Mm-hmm. Before that, I mean, the first loan I ever closed was literally a stated income, stated assets. Locked the loan on a Monday, we closed them on a Friday. There's a lot of regulatory that was good and bad that came out of that time period. But if we have another crisis like that, we won't be to that magnitude because of mortgages. Because mortgages, where a lot of people don't realize what happened was that it wasn't really that how bad the debt was being written. It wasn't being evaluated correctly. Mm-hmm. And that's where the real problem and the real greed came in, is that they weren't rating it right, because it was all a money grab. Well, if you're not going to rate it, I'm going to take my mortgage-backed securities over here, and I'll pay John Doe over here a little extra money on the side, and they'll rate me as AAA so I can sell these at a higher margin on Wall Street. And so they're like, well, we're going to do that, anyways. And that's where the problem came in. And they were sneaking deals in to these mortgage-backed security poolings that they shouldn't have been, and they were rated a grade high. And then, you take your mom and pop shop that's been investing in your 401k for the last 30 years. You're investing in these mutual funds and stuff that have invested now in mortgage-backed securities, and now that debt's going bad because they thought they were investing in AAA rating, securities, when really it was more like junk bonds. And it should never have been in some of the portfolios. And that's why so many people lost retirement money. And that was what really caused the crippling effect that happened with it. But if we have an event like that again, the term that I've heard is called, it's going to be a black swan event. It's going to happen where nothing that's ever happened before has happened. And that's what's going to cause this happen. So it's going to be a magnitude of multiple different variables to come in. I personally think builders really, being the conservative they have been over the last 13 years, have been able to capitalize that on the last 4 to 5 years, because they dominate the home buying process right now. They're the ones that are putting inventory up, especially with the low rates that we had in 2020 and 2021. Those people that have 2s, 3s, there's some people I know that even have one in the ones on shorter term mortgages during that period. They're not going to give up their house unless they can take cash, pay cash for another house.
Yeah.
But with the lack of inventory, it's going to be hard for somebody to do that. And rates need to drop. In my opinion, my professional opinion, I think they need to drop into the 5s, 4s, for those people to realize, like, okay, now I have 50% equity in my home over the last 4 years. I'm willing to give up that and take the equity and exchange it for a higher interest rate to buy a bigger home. And the number one reason most people are, the number one reason right now, which is the stats is like 62%, 61% of people that are moving right now are moving up and taking higher interest rates, or they want to move out of the area that they live in because it's becoming overdeveloped, or schools, or whatever the case may be. They're trying to get out of that area, and they're taking higher interest rates because they know that when rates drop, they can refinance. And that's, I think right now, as soon as rates come down, as they are starting to come down now, I think going into the second week of January, I think we're going to see a lot of people back in the market. This time of year, this last 3 weeks of the year, everybody's getting ready for Christmas. Nobody's really doing anything. But I think second week of January, I think it's going to get really hot, and it's going to get really hot really fast throughout the country for most areas because there's a lack of inventory, a lack of affordable inventory for first-time home buyers, but just a lack of inventory overall. So it's going to skyrocket prices again. So the Fed, obviously, so mortgage rates don't go off the federal funds rate, but the federal fund rates, the way it impacts the market, and obviously if the federal funds rate's at 4%, you can't have a mortgage rate below 4 or 5% because of that. But the point is that as they keep talking about this, the guys on Wall Street that are billionaires, they're the ones like, okay, well, we know this is going to happen because we have that cigar club down the road where we actually know what's really going to happen, conversation. And then they're like, okay, well, rates are going down. Rates are going to go down. The market's going to bump. And the Fed's playing that game. That's what they did. So all in all, I think we're going to be a bumping year this year. And then I think next year, I think it's going to level out somewhat. But it's always projections. Nobody really knows. Right. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Zillow, the Mortgage Bankers Association, they've all came out and said that we're at the peak and that we will see rates coming down. Some are more aggressive on that decline on their charts than others. But, those are the people that have the data. They see every loan that's underwritten pretty much. That's a conventional loan. Zillow's pretty much controls the online marketplace for all the data of what's being sold and what's not being sold. So it's pretty wild, the data that's out there.
Yeah. So going into a little bit of a different area, as far as yourself, from youth to now, what are some challenges that you had in your life that you overcome, and how did you overcome them?
That's always a tough question. I've been asked that in job interviews multiple times. I think there's a lot of things in my life that I've been able to overcome. A lot of it, comes with disappointment and failure and stuff that I thought was, a given, or, like coming out of college, like we talked about earlier, being laid off within the first 90 days. I'd still joke with my buddy Sean that got me in the mortgage business. Like, Like, I don't know why I'm still in the business 16 years later, and here I am with my own company now. You know, me and my wife get to work together every day. But all in all, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about it, but I think anything specific that sticks out is I finally gave up on myself, went in college at one point, and went home. Moved home for about 6 months, maybe 8 months. Went and worked in a body shop, and I saw the guy at the body shop just making boohoos, and I'm like, I gotta get my life back together. Like, it was really hard coming home, and you know, it was work all day, drink every night at the bar, and then go home and sleep, and then go to work, and I just felt like a loser at that point. I mean, I know that a lot of people have that lifestyle, but you know, I felt like a loser because I knew I could do so much more. But it was a really big hit. But you know, my fraternity brothers are the ones that called me on a weekly basis. You know, like, hey, you know, don't be that deadbeat that, you know, comes up here and then leaves college and then never does anything with your life. And yeah, they were talking smack to me, but you know, it got me like, all right, these guys are right. Like, these guys actually do care about seeing me be successful in life and get back in and get my college degree, because that's what you thought you had to do, get a college degree and you were set. You know, it's not the truth, but that's what you think. And overall, I mean, that was a pretty low point in my life. And I know a lot of that, looking back, had to do with the amount that I was drinking, because we were drinking every night, me and my buddies. You know, some days we'd be drinking at 5:05 as soon as we get off work. You know, go to the store and get some you know, what was it? It was like Natty Ice or something. I don't even know. I mean, it was like the poorest of the poorest with the highest alcohol content you could buy without being like cheap grain liquor, you know, like Everclear or something from the store. But looking back, like, that definitely didn't help me mentally. But that was probably one of the hardest times, I think, was during that period. I had some other hard times in life, but I think, I mean, starting the business was a very, when me and Mallory decided to start the business this year, we prayed a lot about it. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I told Mallory, I was like, you know, I need these signs, you know, these things. If this happens, we're going to do it. And it happened. She's like, all right, so we're going to do this? All right, well, thanks for calling me out on my BS. Because, you know, in my head, I was like, these things aren't going to happen. There's no way. But, you know, I think through our faith and praying through God and asking for, like, signs, you know, even though it's one of those things with, like, the red car effect. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy a red car. And now next thing you know, you see red cars everywhere. Like, man, I never saw a red car until now. Yeah. So maybe that's the effect. Whatever. I'll fall back on my faith with it. Because I feel like that we were led to do that. I feel like we were led to our company to do it. It was scary. I've had a corporate job. I've always had somebody pay me. I had benefits. You know, Mallory, things were really good during 2020, 2021, obviously. Biggest boom of the time. I mean, my team and the branch that I worked with, you know, we did a lot of loans in 2020, 2021. We did over $2 billion in 2 years, which is a lot of loans with a very small team, which was 40 loan officers. But, you know, I had to contribute a lot of that to my manager and my supervisor and my mentor at the time, Eddie Brown, because he knew, like, we had to do this to get these goals. But the point is that I've never, you know, walking away from that, Mallory went to be a stay-at-home mom that following year, and just pretty much managed my social media. We took the branch from one company to another company, which wasn't bad until later in the year when the market really got bad. And I mean, it was really scary because I told Mallory, I was like, you know, I told her flat out, I was like, look, all these things lined up. We checked all these boxes. If this fails, are you okay with living in the fifth wheel behind your dad's house in Rutherford until we figure it out? She's like, any day. And I was like, all right, well, number one, I was blessed with a great wife that supports me. Number two, I know my father-in-law would let us literally live in his backyard in the fifth wheel, which he would, because I'm blessed to have a great father-in-law by all means. And I mean, we didn't make money for our company, and we were just digging into savings for the first 4 months. Because, you know, the process of leaving, licensing, a lot of stuff mortgage companies have to do. A lot of people don't realize for compliance to make sure that the people that are licensed and companies and stuff like that. So, I mean, it was 60 days of me not being able to do anything. So it was just savings account, just draining. It was scary. It was really scary. But I was very open with Mallory about everything. we still, rely on our faith. We felt like God put us to open that mortgage company, and not doing it in Charlotte, but doing it in Shelby, so we would be closer to home, and serve a community that really only has 2 other mortgage companies out there other than the banks. And a lot of people out there are, and this isn't to bash anybody, but the education, out there, like in Charlotte, like, okay, I can call Movement, I can call Fairway, I can call John Doe Mortgage Company, I can call, there's 100 mortgage companies in Charlotte that aren't banks.
Yeah. Out
there, people are like, oh, I got to go to the bank for a mortgage deal. And that's not the truth. You can get a better deal and stuff like that. So we felt like God was pushing us to go out in that community and be a mortgage broker, because we're the only locally owned mortgage company from Charlotte, Belmont, all the way up to Hendersonville. So we have a big footprint, and we're the only mortgage broker out there that we can help people with. And it's scary. It's still scary today. But I rely a lot on my faith that, this is something we're supposed to do. And if it's not, then there's some lessons that are going to push me to the next thing in life. But everybody's going to be afraid. If you're not afraid, you're not going out of your comfort zone. And I was listening to a coach call last night, actually. And they're like, if you're not willing to, you're going to fail. I mean, everybody's going to fail. How big the failure is going to be, how big of a risk you're going to take. But if you don't learn from it, then you just wasted that. But you got to learn from it. And I feel like I had a great mentor in my last company, and that coaching and stuff like that has really helped me fall down on being able to know, like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to do. And I need, I'm going to fail. Yeah, I'm going to fail at some things, but I'm not going to fail big enough that my family's going to be in jeopardy. But it's scary. It's still scary every day. And, to answer the question more directly instead of the roundabout, overall, I mean, I would say that's probably the most recent time, and I'll fall back on my faith to, guide us through this time, because I know that, as long as we do what's right and do right by others, then God's going to be good to us no matter what. So,
and how did you come about with your faith from the college days when you kind of dropped out for that period of time, and it sounded like you were devastated in terms of college and life and so on, to this point where now you have the faith to just start a new business?
I think a lot of it's life experiences. I mean, we all had that first girlfriend that broke up with you, and you're devastated, and you're like, oh, I'm never having a girlfriend again. Your stomach hurts. Everybody goes through that. It's just, how do you handle it? How do you get through that? And I think the best way to answer that question is really just to, you live and learn. I mean, that's the short. But there's a lot of people I've been blessed with in my life that have took me under their wing, guided me, saw my potential, gave me advice, even if I wasn't smart enough or mature enough being the big word there, to take their advice. But, looking back on it, being put in, my buddy that brought me in the mortgage business, he's the one also introduced me to self-help books. I know a lot of people don't believe in self-help and all that stuff. I think it's key. I think learning from others and reading puts you years and years ahead instead of trying to figure it out on your own. I think that goes along with mentorship and coaching. But I've had a lot of great people in my life that have poured into me when I wasn't really necessarily probably mentally open to be poured into because of ego, maturity. I mean, my wife still tells me I'm still like her third child some days, which I get. I am a little mature sometimes still with the kids, but that's family. But I had a lot of people that loved and poured on me, and I think everything happens for a reason. I'm a very firm believer in that, because we had this is a little personal, but when we had Allie, our second girl, we actually they do that first test when you're pregnant. It's like 5 proteins, something like that. Might say it wrong, so I do apologize. So we thought Allie might have Down syndrome, which was a serious concern for us. And we went to church that Sunday, and our preacher actually came up to us. Nobody knew about this. Nobody in our family. Me and Mallory hadn't told anybody about this, because we wanted to go to the next doctor's appointment, a couple more tests and decide what we do before we tell anybody. And he came up to us, and he's like, hey, everybody knew we were pregnant. And he's like, oh, how things are going? And he's like, yeah, well, my brother had this instance where, he had this test, and they told him that, the world's come to the end. Your kid's going to have Down syndrome, blah, blah. So he started being the nerd, his words. He started doing all this research, and come to find out the test was like 50% like false negative, all this stuff. But they have to do it because it's such an early detector and all this stuff. So me and Mallory are sitting there like, we haven't told anybody about this, and this is exactly what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days or 3 days later, we went to a specialist, and Mallory's like, "Oh, my blood work came back yesterday or this morning." She's like, "All right, let me look at this real quick." So she gets on her computer and whatever, and then she's like, "Okay, well, this is good." We're like, okay. She's like, "Yeah, if these wouldn't have came through today, we'd be having a conversation about what you're going to do going forward with life, about having a kid with Down syndrome."
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "You had a 1 in 20 chance that this kid was going to be born with Down syndrome." Now that we look at this panel, and I don't understand all that stuff. Didn't stay at Holiday Inn last night, so I'm not going to act like I'm a doctor by any means. She's like, "You have a 1 in like 300 or 400,000, 400,000 chance. Mm-hmm. So it's very unlikely, but we'll still target you as high risk and stuff like that." So that was definitely one of those times where you're like, it's a great example, like God's power and God's putting people in your life at the time that you need to be in it, and stuff like that. So,
yeah. So, you mentioned that you started the business and your wife is kind of part of your business there. What is it like working with her hand in hand?
It's great. My wife still works part-time for another company, but she works part-time for me. It's about 60-40, 50-50, depends on how busy the other company is. It's really great. Me and Mallory have a great relationship. We talk all the time anyways. Actually, we're talking in the parking lot here before I walked in. It's great. I love it because we've always had that friend. Like, she's my best friend, hands down. I mean, my other best friend lives in Florida, but and I have a lot of great friends. But we've had that connection our whole life. The whole time we've been together, we've always had the friendship connection before, like, the romance side sort of came to it. So it's great. I love it. I mean, there's times where I probably irritate her. I don't do it intentionally. Probably only about 5% of the time I probably do it intentionally. And she knows when I'm doing it intentionally, so I get the look, like, ha ha. But no, it's great because we both have the same mindset. We both know where we want to go. We both had deep conversations about the business and our goals for the business. That's why we named it Mathewson Mortgage Capital, is because we wanted our name on the company, because every mortgage gets done, everything gets done, is our name that's associated with it. And when dealing with a mortgage is high trust. I mean, they got to trust you to, hey, are you going to get this done? Because it's stressful buying a house. You don't ever know if you're closing on time really until you get that phone call before closing saying, hey, you're officially clear to close now. And there's stressful times during the process because one reason or another. But we're on the same page with a lot. We do a year in planning together. The other company she works for is a company called Win Rate Consulting, which is a coaching group, which is great. The owner there, guys, super great. They focus on the trades as their coaching clients. So she understands like the coaching side of things, which I think is a big part of my life because I have a few different coaches. But it's great because she knows me good enough to know like how I act in the situations, how I react to situations. She knows I'm unorganized as can be, like totally unorganized. And she knows like, okay, well, I'm the organized person. I'm the one with the paperwork. Chuck, just go get the business kind of stuff. So we both complement each other together, and we worked together before at Home Point. I got her in the mortgage business during that period, which back then I was questioning if it was a good idea. Now looking back, it's probably one of the best ideas because now she can come in and actually help me. Yeah. I mean, she's working today, working on files, in between doing other stuff for as long as that we got closing tomorrow and next week. So it's really great. I really enjoy getting to see her every day. At home, our desks are like pretty much like this. At the office, I mean, she's away from the office, so she's probably 20, 30 feet away. But, we have a great relationship. So I enjoy it. And our vision, is to, grow her with the company and, keep her to the point where if she ever does want to leave the other company, we can bring her on full time, but still have her in her capacity where she's always involved with the company, even as we grow. That we follow her goals not just my goals for the company. And I think she understands I want her to happy, and I'm home now. I mean, before, I was getting to Charlotte at 7 o'clock in the morning, wasn't seeing my girls before school. I was getting home at 7 o'clock at night, so I see them maybe for 20, 30 minutes before they have to go to bed, and then I was getting an hour with my wife every night. And then weekends, it's like, how do I make up that time with my kids? How do I make up that time with my wife? Because, when the kids are around, you really can't have time with your wife. You can't have that, let's cuddle on the sofa and watch a movie, or let's go have some dinner or whatever. You can't do that when the kids are around.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And ever since I've been home, I was at coaching, to go on with my story, I was at a coaching event this summer with my mortgage coach, where he was here in Charlotte. And he's like, well, what's the best thing you think about your business? I'm like, you know what? In the last 3 months, I've spent more time with my kids and my wife than I have in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. Because on the weekends, I was on call. You're always on call in the mortgage business. I'll always cut my ringer off on Sundays, try to avoid stuff, but you can't avoid when people are trying to buy houses. You just can't. Yeah. And people are working, all that stuff. So it's really good. She really gets it. I think starting our business has helped our family. I'm a firm believer in going through coaching and mentors. You can't sit there and tell your kid, follow your dreams, follow your dreams, follow your dreams, and then they see you working a 9 to 5, or in my case, it was a 7 to 7 most days, and your dreams really don't own your own business. I've always wanted to own my business, but I wasn't at the stage or maturity level or knowledge level to understand, okay, I have the confidence now to do this. And, and I feel like, everything over the last few years put me there. But working with Mallory every day is awesome. Hands down, I don't think I could go work another job without her being there, because I miss her. We do lunch together, so instead of doing date night, we can go do date lunch, and it's just us, and we can catch up, and we can do stuff together, and I'll just enjoy it. Mallory is she's a part of me. It's really we're that intact. I hope she feels the same way about me. As she watches this probably later on, she'll be like, that's sweet, but that last part just messed it all up, Chuck. Good job.
No, it's always great to have a great relationship within marriage, and then take that partnership not only within family and marriage, but also in business. I think it has a different effect, a great effect on life. So you mentioned in school you were playing basketball and football, or not
baseball.
Football, sorry, baseball.
Yes.
What do you do today for exercise and health?
I definitely don't play baseball or basketball anymore. I usually work out, lift weights, just try to walk, try to eat healthy. Obviously, I'm not the fittest person in the world. I had a ruptured the vertebrae between my C-suits. I ruptured a couple of years ago doing squats. So I sort of have to be careful now about that. But I try to work out and lift weights. I invested in back in 04 or 05, bought a Smith machine. So if it's in my garage, I have no excuse about spending money to go to a gym or going to a gym or find the time to go to a gym, because I always hated going to the gym and not being able to do the workout you wanted to do. So we bought a Smith machine, and we have that in our basement in our workout room now. And I've added on a rower, those BoaFlex adjustable dumbbells, and stuff like that. So I try to lift. I have to be careful about it, so I don't work out nearly as much as I used to. But I'm starting to do that. But the biggest thing I do now, that I need to do more, is play golf. I try to get on the golf course. I try to take my girls out there. Our country club is very low key. Not a lot of people on the course most of the times, other than on Saturdays. So I can take my girls out there, and not have to worry about some drunk jerk, behind me hitting a golf ball into us. I can be out there putting. They can be running around doing whatever. Because that's usually the second hole. They're in the dirt making fairy gardens. I don't know what a fairy garden is, but that's what they tell me they're making. But golf, I've used this Whoop and other measuring things to measure my activity levels when I do that. And golf is, you're swinging a golf club, you're walking, or you're riding a golf cart, drinking beers, or you're smoking cigars. There's still a lot of physical activity that goes in, to moving your body, the steps, keeping your heart rate up, all that effect. Even if you're riding, I'll drink some on the course. I don't get drunk on the course. but I smoke cigars. I'm still, my heart rate stays elevated. And it's 3 or 4 hours of staying elevated. And also I'm getting steps in. I mean, I usually get 10,000 steps on the golf course just from walking the golf cart to where my ball is. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of that's probably in the woods, but I mean, I'm not a great golfer, but I try.
Yeah. And then when it comes to wealth management and money management, you mentioned when you were high school, college, you were not as mature in terms of handling money. But what have you learned over the years of how to properly handle money?
Being in the mortgage business, one of the first customers I ever talked to called me as a 65 or 70-year-old guy. He's like, I need to refinance my mortgage. All right, let's look at the numbers. Like, man, I can save you like $25 a month. He's like, great. I'm like, no. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I can't do this alone. There's no benefit. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I need that $25 extra a month just to buy groceries. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this guy's in retirement, barely had, the only thing he's got Social Security, never saved anything his whole life. And he's begging to refinance his house on another 30-year mortgage to save $25 a month. I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't do it. From then on, I was like, I need to make sure I save money. Because being in the mortgage business, you see a lot of people's financial situations. You see people that have been very smart with their money. You see the average person. You see the person that's been good with their money, but they're still pretty average. And you see the people that just spend way too much money and live beyond their means. And that's really taught me to, yes, there's been times I probably have lived beyond my means, hands down. I mean, I'm human. I'm not perfect by no means. But it's made me save. So during the good times, save. And I preached that to my team, especially the younger people that, the younger guys and women that were on my team. I would like, save your money. 2020, 2021, these are good times. They're not always good times in the mortgage business. Save your money now, because the mortgage business is like this. And 2020 was a big years. I mean, and I was like, save your money. This is not normal. Like, just save it. And, a lot of people listened to me. A lot of people didn't. But I saved and I invested. I have a financial advisor that handles my retirement stuff. But I think it's just a matter of saving. Don't be stupid with it. Don't, jump on the newest trends. I believe in crypto. But the NFTs, some of those NFTs, I think I saw one the other day, said they sold for like $2.3 million and now it's worth like $40 or something. I'm just like, I just never understood that, because I was like, well, let me take some pictures of my kids' drawings and make them NFTs and see if I can make some money. I was just like, you know what? This is a fad. Like, this isn't going to last. There's no way this lasts. It's just too easy. But I do believe blockchain and stuff like that's going to come, and crypto. I think that is the future. I think to not get too far in economics and stuff like that, I think that is the future. But to answer your question, it's just saving money. Try to be smart about what you can do. I know that I can make X number of dollars. So if I need to go a little riskier this month and put some things on the credit card, I know I can offset that within the next 2 or 3 months because of the potential ROI on that money that I'm investing. If you got a 9-to-5 job and you're making a salary, you can't go spend $400 or $500, at the bar on a Friday or Saturday night, thinking that's a smart idea to put that on a credit card and keep doing that and not be able to pay that off and just keep racking that up. That's not good.
Right.
And that will ruin your credit. And credit's important. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, credit involves your car insurance. That's the number one thing. You might not be able to buy a house or a credit card, but your insurance rates are going to be impacted. Jobs are pulling people's credits now to make sure that you're a responsible individual. So that really taught me a lot, because when I came out of college, I think I had like 500 credit score. I didn't understand the point of making payments on time. My parents just taught me, but I probably just didn't pay attention, because my parents were pretty smart about stuff like that. But I just didn't pay attention. I didn't know you were supposed to make payments on time. And then when I got to college, I was like, holy crap, I might lose my job when they pull my credit because I can't get licensed. But luckily I did. But now, my credit score is great. So is my wife's. So, just being smart about money and always investing it. Because, investing your money, even in crypto or just basic stocks, whatever. Your 401k is great, but you got to have something else there, a rainy day fund, when stuff happens. Because life's going to happen. You're going to be out of work from a layoff or something for 2 or 3 months, or maybe even a year. or you start your own business and not make money for 6 months, you know,
Yeah.
or a year. I mean, so yeah, it's about just being smart and saving, you know, not over leveraging yourself.
Yeah, makes sense. As far as the lending world, what are the different types of loans out there?
On residential, I mean, there's a lot of different products out there. I mean, you have your basic, you know, conventional FHA, VA, you know, home equity lines of credit, renovation loans, construction loans. I think construction loans are one thing that most people don't realize, where like, well, I want to go buy land so I can build on it. But you can actually go buy land with a construction loan. You just have to start building within 30 days. And it's actually the smarter way to buy land, because most places, people that want to finance land, they want at least 30-40% down, unless you can work out like a private or pay cash, private financing or cash. So that's a great product that most people don't realize are out there. And a lot of realtors and real estate agents don't push it because they would only get paid whatever the land price is. They don't get paid on the bigger picture. And so it's not really pushed out there, but that's a great product. Like, for example, veterans. A veteran can go in there and use, if they have the VA entitlement, they can go build a house, buy the land, 100% financing. 100%. Build your dream home on your own land, 100% financing. Do FHA. You can even do it USDA, so you don't even have to be a veteran to do 100% financing. There's limitations on that, but there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of new programs, what they call is non-QM. Some people throughout the term will say it's the new subprime, but it is, but it isn't. And the reason I say it isn't is because you have to prove the ability to repay it one way or another. There's one product out there for people to buy investment properties without showing your personal income. It's underwritten like a commercial loan. So the way they prove that loan is going to get paid back is based on the rent, either that you're already getting or based off a rent schedule that an appraiser does. There's a lot of different ways. 1099 income. So if you're a 1099, you're like, oh, well, I'm self-employed. Yeah, but if you get 1099, you can actually use, some companies do a 10% expense factor, some do a 20%. But pretty much, you say, for example, you make $100,000 on your 1099, we can give you $90,000 for income. Don't want to see tax returns, don't care about your bank statements, nothing. That's the income we're going to use. And then you have bank statement loans that are coming back out. Those have been out for a while. They started coming back out in probably 2014, 15. But everybody shot upon them because they're like, oh, well, the rate's like 2% higher, you know, and there wasn't many people doing them. But there's a lot of stuff out there to fill the gaps where the conventional loans and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and stuff like that have sort of done. It's higher interest rates because it's more risky of a loan, but there is a lot of possibilities to get people in homes, and you just got to prove that you repay. Is it common sense underwriting? I don't think it's any common sense when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they do use some common sense sometimes, if it makes sense, you know. So.
And as far as the mortgage industry, what are the different actors in it? Like lenders, borrowers, middlemen, governments, like whatever. Like, what are the different types of actors?
Oh, well, that's a big question. On the borrower-facing side, you have 3 different types of people that will originate a loan that you would come to sit down and have a conversation with a loan officer. That'd be a mortgage broker like me. I have access to what we call wholesale lenders. Wholesale lenders are what they are. They're the Costco and BJ's and the Sam's Clubs of the lender world. A lot of places that are like, you know, CMG. They just bought a company recently. I forgot who they bought out, but they have a retail presence, like a movement. That's what we call retail, distributor retail, or Fairway and stuff like that. Those are retail loan officers, but a lot of those places have wholesale too, so they can bring in loans from not only their own people, but from brokers like me, because we can shop around to different places. And then you have the banks. Banks have good products for certain stuff. There's only a few banks though that lend their own money, and that's where a lot of people think like, oh, if I go to Wells Fargo, they're going to hold my mortgage forever. No, Wells Fargo, if they need to, they're going to sell that mortgage in a heartbeat. On the secondary market, they might hold it, they might sell it. You never know. They're not lending. Big banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, like the big boys in the country, they're lending their own money. but typically they're lending off warehouse lines and stuff like that. So it's like a big credit card. If you go to like a Movement or a Fairway, they're lending off warehouse lines. So it's not their money. They might service it, but they'll fund your loan on a warehouse line, which is like a big credit card per se. They pay that warehouse lender at some dollars per transactions, and then when they sell that loan to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac on the secondary market, they keep the servicing rights, and then it looks like they have the mortgage the whole time, which they really don't. They just hold the servicing rights, and this so-and-so on Wall Street actually has the mortgage. And then you have the banks, and some local banks, state employees in North Carolina, these markets are great. They have a lot of great programs. They lend their own money, 100%. But overall, those are the kind of people that, if you don't ever want your loan ever sold, it's going to be really hard to find those people because, there's just too much money and risk that you can leverage out by selling mortgages and the servicing rights of mortgages. And even if you still pay Bank A, Bank B might really own your mortgage. Bank A is just taking your payments and handling that servicing side of it. And then some banks, they don't want to service because there's so much compliance when you start servicing. It's just another level of compliance that you have to do. And then when you get so big, there's so much compliance in our whole industry. But with that, and then, you have your underwriters ask for the people that approve the loans. They're the ones that stamp the approval, the funders and all that stuff. But the gist of it is it comes from the originators, loan officers, to whoever's going to service it. And then it gets sold as a mortgage-backed security on Wall Street somewhere. And they'll get sold in bundles. And that's why a lot of, when the banks do stress tests, a couple of years ago, Wells Fargo or Bank of America, I can't remember which one, right before that stress test, they actually were selling off tons of their mortgage-backed securities because you can liquidate them like that, especially in certain markets if the bundles aren't overvalued. They were actually told to stop because, why are you doing this right for a stress test? Were you not liquid enough before the test? It was sort of are you cramming in for your test? Your teacher's like, why are you cramming? You didn't study, kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of people in there. The mortgage world is a lot more complicated than people realize. It's finance. It's to the level of finance where, Wall Street is involved. It's a security instrument. People make a lot of money off on it. Not on the front, but a lot of times on the back. More money is probably made on the back end of a mortgage being sold around than usually typically on the origination side of it.
What about private investors or private lenders? How do they kind of fit into this whole lending picture?
Hard money lenders, private lenders, usually raise capital from investors, and that's the money they lend out. They usually have short terms, balloons, like 6 months, 3 month balloons, sometimes 12 months. They usually raise capital to get back, and then their investors get some percentage guaranteed, and then eventually get more and more investors to do so. But that is very risky. But you're paying expensive rates for that risk. I know one of a development buddy of mine has a private investor. He's like, if I have a Hail Mary, I make a phone call, I tell him what I need, and the money's in my account the next day. But it's very, very expensive, and it's literally a Hail Mary because at that point, I know I have to do this or I'm gonna lose this job totally and be in trouble. He's like, it kills my margins because but that's the level. And you have the ones that do it consistently, that's their 100% days, and then you have these people that have money we'll do it because we have all this money, but we're gonna pay you. Got to pay us 6 months. So a lot of that is private money, funds. You hear a lot of people talk about funds, raising capital from and funds. There's a lot of compliance with SEC, so I don't know all the legal sides of it. They'll get money from Wall Street. They'll get money from hedge funds. They'll get private investors. They'll get business owners and stuff like that to all pull these funds together, and then they'll go buy private properties, fix them up, and then 6 months later after fits, they'll finance them through traditional financing, pay off the investors, go to the next project, and just roll
through that way.
So a lot of it's just people want to invest money.
What about title loans?
Title loans for cars.
You see these kind of buildings, especially around here, the green and yellow.
Oh yeah, that one down there, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about them, but I am starting to see billboards for attorneys like trying to solicit title loans, people that are in North Carolina. So I don't know enough about those to actually speak about them.
Is it cars? Is it homes? Like what?
It's cars.
Is it like any kind of title?
I think cars, boats, motorcycles.
Okay.
Anything. North Carolina, you can't do it. It's got to be in South Carolina.
Yeah, I think I've seen it in South.
Now, I don't think South Carolina people are supposed to do it in North Carolina residents. So I think there's attorneys now trying to get, obviously attorneys are all, trial attorneys are always going to try to find somebody to sue. Mm-hmm. So I've seen the billboards like, hey, have you got a title loan in North Carolina, and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that title loans you cannot do in North Carolina, but South Carolina you can. I don't know the just of it. I think it's just like a personal loan, except a lower interest rate because you hand over title to your house or car. I don't think you do them on houses. I think they mainly stick on cars and stuff they can actually go grab. I don't think they do them on houses.
Okay. I was just curious about those. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your business. Like, what do you do? What services you offer? And anything else you want to say about this?
No, definitely. I mean, we chose to be a mortgage broker because we wanted to have options. And when I say options is that every mortgage company has what they call a capital markets team. The capital markets team is the one that sets the margins. They're the ones that set the rates, everything. So United Wholesale capital markets team might say, oh, well, this bucket of this scenario for a loan, we need to make this margin. But then you might have Windsor or Click and Close or Chase or whoever. Then we're like, well, we actually like this bucket because we have somebody on Wall Street that wants to buy these, so we'll give you better pricing. So I like being able to go to different lenders and shop around for the best deal. Best interpretations of guidelines sometimes, even on a standard FHA, VA loan or conventional loan. Not everybody has the same situation for what they're trying to do. Work history, commission, income, weird work histories because you came from a different country or stuff like that. Everybody has a different appetite. So being a broker, I can shop everybody. I'm not stuck to just one underwriting guidelines or one lender's path. I can do whatever not whatever I want, but I can shop it around to find out who will do this loan. For example, I had a client that had been working with Cross Country, which is a national mortgage company, for 4 months. And then they finally turned her down so they could not prove occupancy in the home. I was like, something's wrong. Like, that's you can prove occupancy very, very easy. It's a very easy condition to handle. Come to find out, they were trying to do what they call rapid rescores, which means that trying to get her credit score up to where she could qualify. It was a cash out transaction, had low credit. I was like, let's just talk because I think something else is going on here. And she sent me all the documents. That's when I was like, okay, well, they've been doing rapid rescores. They pulled your credit every 30 days, which is bringing your score down. But if they tell you to pay off this, pay off that, she's like, yeah, but I don't have the money to do that. That's why I'm going to refinance my house, to get the cash out to pay all this stuff off. I was like, hey, I get it. I was like, I can get this done with this amount, but you can't get all the money you wanted. But long story short, we got it done. We closed. And, Cross Country never had couldn't even go down to that credit score. Because I called a friend of mine. I was like, can you help me do this loan? She's like, no. I was like, all right, whatever. We got her done. We got her taken care of. But they were about to put a lady in a very bad situation. And that's because, somebody was just looking for a deal. They weren't thinking about the customer. And we take great pride in really taking care of people. I've told people to go other places. Like, I worked with a lady a few weeks back, didn't have a credit score. I was like, all right, great. I can do this. But you're a state employees. You have one open account with them that you just opened up 2 months ago. Called my buddy. Like, hey, man, can y'all do this? Because he's over the mortgage division at state employees for, like, Charlotte area. He's like, yeah, we can do it, especially if they got a credit card with us. I'm like, what kind of rates are you looking at? He's like, it's way, way lower than what I could. Because I only had one outlet. Out of the 25-plus outlets I have, I had one outlet that would even look at this. And it was going to be expensive. I just called her, look, I can do this. But it's going to save you about $15,000 by going over to state employees. Go talk to them, and they should be able to do it. If they can't, give me a call back. But that's going to be a better route for you, and that's doing the right thing. Right. So I'll tell somebody to go somewhere else. I had to deal with a Panthers player. He's like, hey man, I want to build a house. I want to do all this stuff. I'm like, look, man, I'm just being honest with you. We can do this, but you got a private banking over at Bank of America, don't you? He's like, oh yeah, call him, man. Just call them, dude. They're going to take care of you because you're in private banking and they want to keep all your money over at Merrill Lynch, whatever. Like, they're going to give you raw pricing. They're going to lose money on your mortgage because they want to keep your money in the bank. He's like, really? He's like, you're going to pass up a $2 million deal I'm like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. But we do everything from purchases, refinance, renovation loans, purchases mainly what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have some refinances going through. Purchases, we get them done fast. Our average clear to close from start to finish is 13 days, which is ahead of the national average. Refinances take a little longer because we know we don't have a deadline to hit on those. So purchases will always take precedent to that. But we do anything other than raw land. I mean, there's really, when it comes down to a mortgage, we do HELOCs, investment properties, purchase, refinance, construction loans. We have outlets for all of it, even multifamily homes up to 10 units. We can do those. So it's sort of commercial. It is commercial per se, but we can even do those. So small commercial.
Mm-hmm. And where can people find you?
You can find us at MathewsonMortgageCapital.com, or you can find us on our Facebook page, which is Mathewson Mortgage Capital. LinkedIn, same thing. Our Google page, Mathewson Mortgage Capital. So,
okay. And one last question for you. So today, what do you think the world needs most of?
Political wise?
Anything.
Oh, anything.
Like
wow, that's open.
What does the world need today?
Oh, I think people need a. I think honestly, I think a lot of our problems would be solved if a lot of people got back into church. I think a lot of things would be solved if people sort of like stop believing all the stuff you see online. But that, I mean, and I'm a firm believer in, like, you know, be respectful to people. Don't hide behind a keyboard. Yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff in this world right now that I think that the bigger issue that we have, depending on your side of the fence, on certain, we'll just say gun policies per se, which is one of the things, but there's multiple other things we know. This is mental health. Mm-hmm. I think mental health needs to be addressed more in our country to help out people. I think that would solve a lot of the people that, you know, you hear about these kids getting stabbed in a school, or, you know, this high school kid brought a gun to school because he's getting bullied. Like, look, we all been in a fight at some point in our life. I mean, I don't know many people that haven't, but I can tell you right now, a lot of the younger people, like, that I've talked to, like, some of those guys never been in a fight because they're scared. Mm-hmm. Like, I think, you know, and I'm not prodoning, you know, fighting or bullying by any means, no. But we've all been in a fight. We've all got punched. These kids and these people that are afraid to get beat up, so their buddies don't rag them about getting beat up, but they go grab a gun. They don't realize the consequences of having that gun or that knife, or some of the consequences of the stuff they're doing is going to stay with them forever, and their family forever. It's not just them. But I think mental health is really a major issue in our country right now. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to be addressed more. I think it's getting better, but I think that until the powers to be address it more and put public, you know, tax money towards that, and making sure people are good, not just saying, oh, well, they got ADHD because they don't want to pay attention to class. You know, do the valid test, do the stuff, get the people help that they need, so they can be good citizens. I'm not saying you're lock them up and do brain zaps, you know. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, give them the help they need to go do it. And if you do need help, go talk to somebody. There's no shame in having a conversation with somebody, and they make it so easy now since COVID that there's multiple stuff online. Go talk to somebody. You don't have to tell anybody to go talk to anybody, but there's great professionals out there. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I've done it before. I've had to do it. I mean, it was great. I know people that do it regularly. I know business professionals that if they were in the room today, you're like, this guy's got it made. You know, he makes millions and millions of dollars, 3 houses. They go do it regularly. And not even that, they might even be struggling on something, but they want to make sure that their head is straight for their family, their business, their friends. Pastor Stephen Furtick, one time at Elevation Church, said, this was years ago, he's like, yeah, I go talk to somebody because I have this church, I have my family, I'm traveling, I got to make sure my head's straight. If my head's not straight, there's going to be problems for everybody. And I have 2 people relying on me. And I think that's what people need to do, stop being macho. And if you need help, go help. Get help. Yeah. Men, women, anything. If your kid's acting a little weird, hey, go talk to them. Have somebody talk to them, because we all know you don't want to tell your parents stuff sometimes. There's going to be stuff like that. But I think those are the biggest things. I think people get back into church, and I think I think God's working in a lot of great ways, opening up more churches like Elevation, a lot of more contemporary churches. There's a lot popping up, over the country. So it's not the traditional, let me go to the church that's down the road with the steeple and everything that my last 4 generations, but there's a lot of different contemporary stuff out there. And I think that's working. I think people just need to get out and get past the stereotypes. But that's hard to do, in this world, because we all stereotype and judge even though we're not supposed to. We all do it. If you see the homeless guy on the corner leaving here, you're like, oh, what did that guy do? To mess up his life. He probably did drugs. You never know. He might be a homeless vet that came back from the war and just got left hanging because he got PTSD. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chuck, thank you so much for joining me here. And thank you.
No,
Looking
thank
forward
you for
to
having
talking
me, man.
with you
It was a
some more.
pleasure.
Yep. All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you.